Warning. This video contains spoilers, skits, and a very, very tired narrator. It's over, everyone! After 3.5 years of airing, The Owl House is finally concluded with the amazing finale, Watching and Dreaming. We're all currently experiencing a lot of bittersweet feelings at the moment, obviously, so I thought now would be a good time to look back over some fan memories with you all. Specifically, incorrect theories. Like any good fandom, the Owl House community had a lot of fan theories. And while a good number of them ended up being right on the numbers, such as Lilith cursing Ida, or King being a Titan, even larger number of them ended up being totally wrong. I've decided to organize these in, say it with me everybody, an iceberg format! An iceberg format, okay look, I'm not even going to introduce what an iceberg format is. It's the internet, everyone knows what the iceberg format is. This is going to be a long video, so let's just get started, how about it? Tier 1. Collector Luce. In the hiatus between Season 2A and 2B, Dana Terrace was asked to draw half of a 2B character. She did so, this character being the Collector. Obviously we know now that the Collector doesn't really resemble Luce at all, besides minor superficial details. But back then when we only saw the top of his head, and especially in this drawing, the fandom's gears started turning. These guys, they looked pretty similar. Could it be? So many people were convinced that in the finale, the Collector would end up possessing Luce. All the way up to King's Tide. You can find swaths of fan art and prediction posts about it. Even got to the point where people were making fake leaks of it in hopes of convincing others. As King's Tide grew closer, however, people gradually became less and less confident in the theory, until he finally made his physical debut, putting the theory in the ground for good. I gotta say though, Collector Luce would be an interesting concept. But that would result in us losing out on Luce in Season 3, and thanks to them and everything, Season 3, her development, it's too good to lose. Luce's Palisman. Throughout the entire show, it's been a mystery about Luce's Palisman would be. But teasing officially started hunting Palisman, when Luce was given to Palistrom Wood to create her very own. The reveal wouldn't happen until Season 3, Episode 3, for the future, with the introduction of the lovable snake shifter Stringbean. However, Stringbean's depiction like this was actually a reference to various theories about what it could be.
What kind of magical creature will it be? A dragon?
A bird?
Oh, an otter! A spooky bat?
A snake?
You're close.
A dragon. Luce loves fantasy, and dragons are one of the biggest fantasy tropes of all time. It also resembles a snake, something many people were theorizing her Palisman could be, which, of course, it ended up being. Gilder Snake, the dragon at the start of Episode 1, also was thought to maybe be her Palisman's design. Again, kinda true! Look at Stringbean, they look similar! Bird. After Hunter got Flapjack and Ida with Albert, people started speculating if Luce, too, would be getting a bird Palisman. Dana Terrace had said that bird Palismans were a clawthorn thing, and Luce is pretty much an honorary clawthorn. The most common bird theory was a blue jay, something from a drawing by Dana Terrace where she's playing with her cat, who, side note, is the inspiration for Ghost, which also featured a blue jay passing by. People took this as evidence for Luce getting a blue jay Palisman, which ended up not being the case, but it was still a good idea. Also, in the finale, Hunter got a blue bird instead, so, yeah, his name is Waffle, so, yeah. Otter. This one was a rather simple one, being entirely based around a throwaway gag of Luce and her otter costume. The iconic otter with the dark side line was beloved in the fandom, for good reason, and some took it as foreshadowing for Luce to possibly get an otter Palisman. And wow, yeah, that would have been funny, like, come on, what thematic or sensible purpose would that hold at all? Bat. The first obvious example for this is Luce's phone case, that being a bat. In Eclipse Lake as well, when Luce is communicating with Amity, she uses a bat and a white cat to represent them. The cat clearly being Ghost, but the bat possibly hinting at her future Palisman. A spider was also a common guess for what her Palisman could be, but as we know, neither of those turned out to be the case. At least, not exclusively. A fifth glyph. Throughout Season 1, Luce gradually discovered the 4 glyphs that would make up her arsenal of powers. So afterwards, people thought, well, there has to be more! She can do all kinds of magic with just the 4 of them. The assumption was that throughout Seasons 2 and 3, she would keep finding more. People thought more glyphs were even in Season 1, such as in Amity's diary, which, admittedly, it does look like a glyph. Seriously, what the hell was that? Was she trying to make her own glyph? OC? Do not steal? Amity dash blight XX deviantart XX? Oh no, Amity, stay away from the inflation art! Some even thought the weird owl mural on the Owl House's ceiling was some massive glyph. Of course, this ended up not being the case, with the introduction of glyph combos and escaping expulsion confirming, in fact, Luce can do all kinds of magic with just the 4 of them. She's just gotta do some convoluted bull. Lich Bellows. After Season 1's finale, speculation went wild over what exactly Bellows was. A predominant theory, however, was that he was a Lich. A Lich is an undead sorcerer who uses dark magic to keep himself alive, and is very, very powerful. Probably the most popular example of a Lich character is, well, the obviously named Lich, the main antagonist of the beloved animated series Adventure Time. Now, this guy had quite a bit of similarities with Bellows, people thought. Could he be a Lich? Seeing Bellows' strange abilities and his sinister, glowing eyes, not to mention the heart in his throne room, a large consensus in the fandom formed that Bellows was, in fact, a Lich. And I mean, they were kinda right. Look at him. This guy has Lich-like qualities. He's even keeping himself alive through art of dark magic and stuff, possessing shit and stuff. Maybe he is a Lich. Who knows? A for effort. The author of The Good Witch Azura. Ever since Lost in Language, the Good Witch Azura books have been a mystery for the fandom. Somehow existing simultaneously on both Earth and the Isles, people were obsessed with trying to figure out the mystery. A common theory was that Azura was actually a real witch, and the books were an autobiography of her adventures on the Boiling Isles. This theory also had a secondary component of her being a time traveler, secretly the future daughter of Luce and Amity, sent back in time to inspire Luce to become a witch. To be fair, she does kind of look like how a child of theirs might look. Come on. At least how a child of their Season 1 selves would look. Amity obviously doesn't have the green hair anymore. Some thought they were somehow written by Camilla under some kind of pseudonym. Some thought they were propaganda written by Emperor Bellows in order to convince the Boiling Isles of something.
Emperor Bellows, you need to fill out your taxes.
Not now, Kiki. I'm plotting.
Plotting out what? Your latest evil scheme?
No. My latest book. Azura's going on a homoerotic adventure with Hecate, and they're going to discover how to beat the evil King Caleb. And you see, on the way they'll let him out.
What the fuck?
However, the most popular and accepted theory was that the author was a witch from the Boiling Isles, and she'd been selling her books in both worlds. In addition, this went with the component that she might have a portal door. Luce would have to find her, and the idea was that she'd end up getting home in that way. All this speculating would finally come to a close in Season 2, Episode 13, Any Sport in a Storm. In that episode, Luce and Amity had a wacky side plot trying to figure out how the author could publish in both worlds. They spent the majority of the side plot just talking about the fan theories, and throughout the episode it became very obvious that what they were doing was a little cheeky acknowledgement to the fandom. And that was true, with it turning out to be that the annoying capitalist pig Tibbles was actually trying to sell them and some kind of scam. So boom, mystery solved! But some fans were still left frustrated and confused and longing for more. Many today still feel like there was originally supposed to be a larger story around the books, but due to the Season 3 cutdown, it had to be taken out of the story. I myself, I kind of believe that, it's just, it feels too random and like it's a little mean-spirited for it to have just been a red herring, right? The Day of Unity. The Day of Unity was a mystery ever since its first mention in the Season 1 finale. Emperor Bellows' evil, ominous plan, the clear grand finale of the series. But the question is, what the hell was it? The most common theory about it, by far, is that it would entail uniting the human and demon realms together, merging them to some kind of fused amalgamation. The Star vs. the Force of Evil ending, we've all heard the joke by now. The witches and covens would then be able to take over the human realm, with Emperor Bellows as its leader, with an iron fist. This idea was seemingly confirmed in Hunting Palisman, with Emperor Bellows showing it to the Coven heads as his grand plan for the Day of Unity. Of course, this ended up being a lie by Bellows, but this wasn't the only idea for what the day could entail. The idea went that the day would feature all the Covened witches uniting with the Titan itself, forming into some kind of Lovecraftian hive mind inside the Titan's skull. This would then lead to the Titan itself being reanimated, something seen in the infamous Hunting Palisman deleted scene. Presumably they'd then take over Earth as a godlike figure, with the wild witches being left in the now empty demon realm. This one somewhat happened, with Bellows' final evil plan being to possess the Titan himself, and he did in fact partially destroy the Isles. The left arm of it, to be exact, though it's seemingly repopulated now. In the end, the Day of Unity was nothing more than a fascist scheme to genocide a race of people, something us in the human realm are all too familiar with. It wasn't even the show's climax, that instead occurring as Season 2's climax. Shipping! Now, like any largely young/queer fanbase, the Owl House fandom loves shipping. I myself have engaged in some ships, I will admit.
I'm not for life, you can't take this away from me.
Out of the dozens upon dozens of pairings throughout the show, there's a few non-canonical ones that reign supreme in the fandom's hearts. And one I'm saving for later. Scarlo. Scarlo, the pairing between Willow Park and minor character Scara. Now, as you're going to be able to tell, there's often little to no canon evidence for ships like these, and they seemingly just exist because some fandom hive mind has declared they'd be cute together.
Oh, fandom, may I please have a ship?
Holy poggers! What the fuck is this bit? What is this voice? What am I doing? This was definitely the case here, as the pairing between the two took the fandom by storm for a while. Even Mooring Mark was a Scarlo shipper. Tragically, however, once Season 2B started, Huntlow quickly ran Scarlo out of town, leaving Scara all alone with her instruments. Vinera, a Viney x Emera. Now, unlike Scarlo, this one actually makes a bit more sense. Emera and Viney are very similar to each other, both being mischievous troublemakers who don't mind bending the rules. Now, that might not even have been a factor in them being shipped. In all honesty, their pairing just kind of works. They look cute together, and that's all a fandom really needs to start shipping two characters. Even after the show's ending, this ship is still popular. In 2020, it was literally the second most written about Owl House ship on Archive of Our Own. At this point, it's gotten to a point where some newer fans don't even know that Vinera isn't canon. But listen, Dana Terrace, it's not too late. You can still make Vinera canon, Dana Terrace. Please, Dana Terrace. Goldrick, Edric X Hunter. Now, if you're wondering what a ship isn't called Huntrick or something, it's due to the fact that just after one appearance, Golden Guard was already being shipped with Edric. 5 weeks later, when his name was revealed in Hunting Palisman, the name already stuck, so people just kind of rolled with it. Honestly, this ship was fine. Didn't have as much compatibility or likelihood as Vinera, but wasn't as random as something like Scarlo or something. Unfortunately, as Season 2B came along, Huntlow shot and killed Goldrick, leaving them to die in the back of an alleyway. Gus Tholomew. The pairing between Gus Porter and Bartholomew, his former bully. Out of all the ships mentioned here, this one has the most canon evidence, to a point where people legitimately thought this was going to be canon, including me. They had a pretty similar arc to Luce and Amity, and in the late stages of the show's airing, particularly between For the Future and Watching and Dreaming, Gus Tholomew suddenly skyrocketed into popularity. I don't know what happened. I've personally been shipping them since, through Looking Glass Ruins, but we don't have to talk about that. I'll just say, I did it before it was cool, guys. Nothing happened between them in the finale, though. Matt didn't even say a single word. However, since Gus and Matt don't officially end up with anyone, the fans are free to continue shipping them. Loostrick. I'm not talking about this one. No! Dream Theory. Every fandom has one of these, and the Owl House is no exception. We all know how the Dream Theory goes. The protagonist has been dreaming / making up the story the whole time, and will wake up in the finale having dreamed it all. Now, in the context of the Owl House in particular, the idea was that this was some kind of escapist fantasy Luce had on the way to camp, or a story she was writing. Now, obviously this idea would be horribly depressing for her character, and a genuinely awful ending. But some people thought it could somehow happen. Tier 2. Bill Cipher. When the Owl House first got started in 2020, some of the earliest large fans of it were Gravity Falls fans. For some bizarre reason, they were convinced the show was the secret sequel to Gravity Falls they'd been waiting nearly a decade for, and would finally bring back the lovable psychopath Tumblr sexy man, Bill Cipher. Now, that's not to say they were pulling this idea out of complete nowhere. In the Gravity Falls book, Curse of the Time Pirates, Choose Your Own Adventure story, there's an ending where Dipper and Mabel meet the Axolotl. That's right, the thing that Bill was chanting to when he got killed in Weirdmageddon.
A-X-O-L-O-T-L! My time has come to burn! I invoke the ancient power that I may return!
The Axolotl tells them, Now, this ominous tease of Bill's return has driven the fandom crazy for years, and when the lovable little king showed up in the Owl House, voiced by the same actor as Bill, Alex Hirsch, people were sure they'd finally found a match. I mean, come on, it's perfect! King was once this powerful demon who ruled over subjects, before being casted into a smaller, weaker form. It had to be Bill Cipher! It had to be! It wasn't. Other pieces of evidence include the Emperor's Coven crest, which suspiciously resembled Bill, and Ida's appearance in the graphic novel Gravity Falls: Lost Legends. Heck, in yesterday's Lie, long after the theory had been abandoned by the fandom, we got near official confirmation that Ida was Stan's ex-wife. I never personally believed this theory, Except for a terrifying 30 seconds. In Edge of the World, we are introduced to Bill, leader of the Titan Trappers. Now, Luce climbs up an ominous staircase to meet him, and when I heard the name Bill, I froze. Thankfully, it was just this little guy, but for a second there, creepy Luce. At the end of Enchanting Gromfright, the fandom was left with the revelation that somebody had been imitating Luce, sending Camilla letters in the human realm. The fandom went wild over theories of what this could mean, but the most popular out of all of these was Creepy Luce. The name originated from an interview with Luce's voice actor, Sarah Nicole Robes, where she offhandedly mentioned improvising with the Creepy Luce. Fandom's idea of Creepy Luce was that she was some kind of evil doppelganger of Luce, hell-bent on taking over her life. This theory was strengthened by Season 2, Episode 4, when Creepy Luce was finally officially shown, obscured in sinister shadow. Could she be a clone of Luce, created by Belos? Insert Grimwalker joke here. Could she be a doppelganger of sorts? The fandom had one thing certain, though. Creepy Luce would be a major, evil villain. But instead, in yesterday's live, we were all introduced to the lovable basilisk known as V. As for the Creepy Luce line, it's commonly accepted now to actually have been referring to this.
I wonder if I could see Amity. No. Come on, Luce, you're on a mission.
Bat Queen's owner. The Bat Queen is a very mysterious character, being a guardian of Palisman and some powerful demon. In her final major appearance, Escape of the Palisman, we get the revelation that she is, in fact, a giant talisman, but doesn't remember her owner anymore. Luce promises to help her find them one day, but then it's never brought up again. Of course, this is due to the Season 3 cutdown, with any non-essential episodes getting the chopping block. But that didn't stop tons of theories on who her owner could be. The most popular one out of all of these was the Titan. He was this giant being, and as he was the source of all magic, he might have possibly had a palisman. This theory, though, had one major fault. With how big the Isles was, the Bat Queen would have needed to be a lot bigger than she actually was. She'd pretty much be an ant compared to the Titan. Another possible culprit could be the King of Demons. Pre-Season 1, this was King, but in Season 2A and most of 2B, that was possibly the King's dad, who we now know as the Titan. King considered himself some big King of Demons, and assuming that's true, perhaps he was some giant with a giant palisman to boot? Once it was revealed his father was the king he was imagining, the idea shifted to him, though it was never as popular as the belief that the palisman belonged to his dad. Wait, what? At the time of recording, we still don't know who her owner could have been. Out of all the loose ends left in the show, this is by far the most noticeable and frustrating, and we can only hope that some additional media comes out to resolve it. The Owl Spy. The Golden Guard first appeared in Season 1's two-part finale, Agony of a Witch and Young Blood, Old Souls. First because silently appearing as Belos' right-hand man, he's tasked with going after the Owl House gang at the very, very end of the finale. Of course, the fandom was immediately intrigued about this mysterious masked character. He would quickly be dubbed the Spy, or the Owl Spy, with the belief that he'd be spying covertly on the Owl House crew, and possibly even infiltrating their lives. Some even thought him to be a relative of the Clawthorns. Hey, wait a minute, some thought him to be a Blight. There's a significant amount of people believing he was in fact even Alador or Odalia. Of course, this was all put to rest when Dana Terrace was asked to draw half of a Season 2 character's face. Yes, again. And Shiku Hunter. The common theory was him being the Owl Spy. When Season 2's intro released, it was confirmed, and the Golden Guard we all know and love was introduced. Fake leaks. Like any good cartoon fandom, the Owl House had its fair share of fake leaks. Now, I think the best way to go here is for me to show you a ton on screen, but just focus on a few. Afro Luce. This one popped up between Seasons 1 and 2, and was floating around as a supposed Season 2 screenshot. Theoretically leaked by some Disney employee. Featuring Luce with a big afro and King popping out of it, it's a pretty silly one. Basha crying. This one was among the most highly circulated ones between Seasons 1 and 2, featuring Basha seemingly having some kind of emotional breakdown in a hallway. As I'll discuss later, it was a common theory that Basha would be receiving a redemption arc in Season 2, and this screenshot was used as a prime piece of evidence. Of course, until the artist was revealed. Lumity stuff. There were, of course, a lot of Lumity, quote-unquote, leaks. Luce and Amity at Hexside in detention track outfits? Amity and Luce back at the knee, and, of course, the kiss. This leak was showing a Lumity kiss scene, albeit with their faces off camera. People went nuts over this, but of course, we got a much better kiss officially. Twice! And neither of them were off screen, because that would be the cop-out. Season 2 poster. Whoa, a poster officially announcing Season 2's return! Of course, this in retrospect is laughably fake. Looking at Belos' glowing red eye is a blatant giveaway, given that the only eye colors he ever exhibited are green and blue. Other details included awkward faces and posing, but somehow people believed it. The Season 2 poster, which I'll stand by being the best poster of the show, did have an overwhelmingly red color scheme, but Belos's eyes weren't involved in that at all. I mean, they were, but they were white, so... The trans Basha hoax. Not a leak, but rather a hoax, and the most infamous one in the fandom. On a charity stream, Dana was doing art of various characters, and a supposed one of her drawings started floating around online. Basha wearing a trans flag. For an hour or so, the fandom flipped out, as no one on the internet knows how to check for sources. However, the hoaxer eventually revealed themselves. And thank Titan this was fake, because the largest trans character in the show being a stuck-up bully who's also better at everyone at sports is... yikes, my dude. Alador is the Abomination Coven head. In Convention, we were introduced to the Coven heads, and people were immediately intrigued. These incredibly powerful witches, masters over their respective tracks. Upon Alador's introduction and understanding Willow, people began speculating that he could, in fact, be the leader of the Abomination Coven, explaining Amity's connection and interest of being the Emperor's Coven. Of course, we learned in Escaping Expulsion that Alador was in fact just a wacky inventor, and Darius was actually the head of the Abomination Coven. The Mole. In Clouds on the Horizon, Season 2's penultimate episode, Kikimora exclaims that the Emperor has been spying on the Owl Lady.
That's right. The Emperor has eyes everywhere, and they're all pointed at the Owl Lady.
We immediately took this as a sign that there was some kind of mole inside the cats who would be revealed next episode in a shocking betrayal. There were several theories on who it could be, but perhaps the most popular one was Rain. Rain had been established to be under Terra Snapdragon's control, but even after they revealed that they'd been faking their hypnosis, there was still doubt in some of the fandom's mind. The idea was that Rain was some kind of sleeper agent that would be revealed in the finale, as Rain was forced to betray their friends and lover. Other ideas for who it could be ranged from Steve, the lovable Coven scout who defected from the EC, or perhaps one of the original Bats. The fandom, for some reason, focused on Amber. I don't know her significance at all, but yeah. Ultimately, it seems like the mole ended up being one of two things. A possible snapdragon flower seen here in this shot of the cat space, or one of the abomatons, which many fans had pointed out might have had spying technology in them. So guess another occasion where the fandom looked way too deep into a line. The Collector's defeat. After King's Tide, a lot of people jumped to the conclusion that the Collector was our new main villain, or at the very least, he'd be a very villainous character. So of course, theories sprang up about possible ways the Owl House gang could defeat him. Ignoring the theories that were correct, or close enough to correct, we first have him being resealed, or sealed away somewhere worse. The idea with this, and with a lot of theories, was that the Collector couldn't be reasoned with, and the only way to prevent him was to seal him away forever. Another idea was his death, the thought being that either King or Luce would have to kill him in some dramatic final battle. A variant of this was the idea that he'd be redeemed, but wouldn't fully survive to the end. The most common idea for why he'd die from this is him sacrificing himself to stop Belos in a heartbreaking moment. A variant on the variant was the Belos possession idea. It was already shown in Thanks to Them that Belos could possess people, and in For the Future, he directly tried possessing the Collector. So, going into Watching Dreaming, a theory was that Belos would end up possessing the Collector and gaining the powers of a god, and they'd end up being killed by Belos' defeat. The final theory here I'll be bringing up is the depowerment theory. This idea goes back to the recurring idea that the Collector couldn't be reasoned with, however, has a more sympathetic angle towards him. He'd somehow lose his powers and become a normal human, having to live life as a regular mortal person, possibly adopted by, like, Camila or Ida or something. None of these ended up happening in the end, and we instead got the Collector's amazing redemption in Watching and Dreaming. Tier 3. Amnesia Amity / Moon Amity. When Season 2's trailer dropped, people were quick to notice a strange shot. A person in a moon cloak, face replaced with nothing but a glowing crescent moon. Of course, we now know this to be the Collector, but back then people had no idea of anything about the Collectors. Theories were f***ing wild about this, but the most common one by far was that this was, in fact, our favorite lesbian, Amity Blight! People had noticed the moon imagery associated with her outfits. See her shoes or her necklace, there was a lot of moon imagery going on. We quickly came to the conclusion that, in one way or another, Amity would be donning this outfit, perhaps on some kind of covert mission. However, there was a sector of the fanbase that had a more twisted idea for the context of this outfit. Mindscapes had been introduced in Understanding Willow, along with the idea that destroying memories could heavily damage a mind. So the thought was, What if Amity had lost her memories and was reduced to this as a pawn of the Emperor's Coven? The two most common variants of this were either that once Luce and Amity started dating, the Blight parents would find out and destroy all memories of Luce, or that Amity would lose all of her memories entirely, reduced to an emotionless husk. Yeah, the fandom went to some really, really dark places here, but if we're being honest, I can't deny that this concept is really, really interesting. Belos is right. Wait, put your pitchforks down. Put your pitchforks down, everyone. This theory was made in the first Infinite Hiatus, so none of us knew about his intense evil bigotry at the time. All we knew was that he was some mysterious witch who wanted to do something with the Day of Unity. Okay, is that settled? Cool. Anyhow, the theory stated that Belos was in fact completely telling the truth. The Titan was talking to him, witches were using magic the wrong way. Wild magic was some big evil. A key piece of evidence of this was the idea that if magic comes from the Isles, wouldn't that mean when using magic, witches would be slowly destroying the Isles? Thankfully, this ended up not being the case, and we were given one of the best cartoon villains ever. The Portal cloned Luce. This theory was a variant on the Creepy Luce theory. The basic idea of it was, once you go through the portal, a clone is made of yourself. One where you didn't go through it. Don't ask me how that works, I did not make the theory. I don't think this person thought it through either. So, this clone of Luce would go to summer camp, take her normal pills, and we'd see how a life where she never went to the Boiling Isles would have turned out, for the better or worse. Ida/Camilla dies. This one's a pretty simple one. As Season 2 drew to an end, people started fearing the worst for Ida. She was getting a lot of sentimental moments with her loved ones, and her arc had reached its natural conclusion. Even worse, she was the main character's mother figure! So, of course, she was a prime target to be killed off for some juicy angst. Going into King's Tide, people were worried she'd die, but thankfully, the majority of her would be spared. However, there was still Season 3 left, and with thanks to them's airing, Camilla also became a worrying target. Being Luce's literal mother, her death would be tragic, and Ida was still on the watch list too, being of course, Owl Mom. By the release of the Watching Dreaming trailer, fear for Camilla's death was at an all-time high. She barely even showed up, only featuring for a split second. Was she seriously gonna get killed off and pretty early on? Thankfully, only the best villain ever died, and oh my god, what a marvelous death it was. Surprisingly, everyone who deserved one got a happy ending. Something unusual for this show, but welcome. Amity joins the Emperor's Coven. This theory was rather popular during the first Infinite Hiatus, and many fans were actually convinced that this was the direction her character was going. In Season 1, one of her main goals was to get into the Emperor's Coven, to the point where she was training directly under Lilith. Barely on screen though, but it still counts. So the idea was, as Belos was advancing in his plot on the Isles, what if Amity was fully inducted into the Coven, becoming a member? This would drive a rift between her and Luce, resulting in some juicy angst, which, all fandoms love. A variant on this theory stated that Amity would join the EC, only not willingly, instead forced by her parents. Boshlo! Remember when I said I was excluding a ship for later? Yeah, now's later. Boshlo, the pairing between Willow and Basha. Pre-Season 2, this was by far the most popular Willow ship, and one of the most popular ships in the fandom, total. The idea was that, in Season 2, Willow and Basha would experience a similar arc to Luce and Amity. Basha would learn to become a better person, and would fall in love with Willow. People really believed this was going to happen, but unfortunately for them, Basha was kind of sidelined in Season 2, not really doing much besides being homophobic to Luce and Amity in that one scene. She'd come back in Season 3 in full focus, but was even more villainous now in her Season 1 self, holding no feelings besides being a bitch to Willow. Besides, we all know Basha's too busy simping for Amity to ever care about Willow.
No, Mom, it's not weird that I have kind of body pillows of Amity. Now get out of my room! Don't worry, Amity, I'll never let them separate us.
Blight parents. In the time between understanding Willow and escaping expulsion, the Blight parents became subject of wide discussion. Amity's mysterious evil parents, this big rich family that holds power on the Isles. It was largely accepted that they would be some of the major, if not the main, antagonists of the second season, that they'd be a lot more involved in both Luce and Amity's stories. The characters were almost gotten completely wrong by the fandom. Alador's fan interpretation was essentially Odalia, only cut the business owner and replace it with the generic rich guy. Odalia's depiction ranged from either some tyrannical evil political figure, or basically just a housewife. None of the fandom had guessed they'd actually run a tech company and would be anything more than your stereotypical, Boiling Isles royalty or something. Needless to say, the Blights we ended up getting in the show were much more interesting, yet I still wish we could have seen more of that interaction with Luce, There was definitely something there. Tier 4. Golden Guard Love Triangle. Going back to the idea of the Owl Spy, and especially after Hunter's face was revealed, the idea that the spy would infiltrate Hexside as a student became increasingly popular. A large facet of this idea, however, was that he'd attempted to seduce Luce, resulting in a love triangle between him, Luce, and Amity. I think we can all be thankful that this wouldn't happen. Who created the door? A mystery that's plagued the fandom for years, and is still only somewhat solved, not having any official confirmation besides clues that the show has left us that fandoms piece together. One of the main theories for the origin of the door was the clues that Bellows had created the door, and that it was stolen from him. Since he'd been searching for a way to make the door back home and elsewhere in Else-One, it was theorized that he'd successfully made it, only for it to be stolen away from him. Thus, why he was so desperately going after the Owl Lady. There was yet another idea that the door was some kind of paradox, and that had no real origin. This one was really just a placeholder theory until the fandom could figure out who actually made it. Through context clues in 2B and thanks for them, it seems that the true creator of the door was Evelyn Clawthorne, Edith's ancestor and Caleb's lover. A lot of evidence for this is sprinkled throughout the show, with Evelyn herself finally being mentioned by name and thanks to them. Willow's parents are abusive. When we were introduced to Willow Park, she was in the Abominations Coven. Despite this, it was clear that she was miserable there, and much preferred the Plants Coven, a coven that she was actually skilled in. So the question is, why the hell was she in the Abominations Coven? A common theory around the matter was that, in fact, Willow's parents are abusive, and forced her into a track she didn't want to be in. In escaping expulsion, we meet her parents, and find out, 1, she has 2 dads, and 2, her dads clearly love her and support her a lot. It became clear to the fandom that this really wasn't the case, and there must be another reason. Plus, having the 2 dads be abusive, stuck-up parents would really not be a good look for queer rep, especially coming from a company like Disney. So we're left with actually still not knowing why, in fact, Willow wasn't in the plank track. A commonly accepted theory nowadays comes from a Mooring Mark comic, where he proposes that perhaps she was too strong for her own good as an infant, so as a safety measure, her parents put her in Abominations. Yeah, it's not a perfect theory, but like, it works. It's a fine enough explanation. Hootie cursed Ida. So, this theory was built around the idea that in some way, Hootie was some kind of demonic trickster, possibly even the weird owl god seen on the Owl House's roof mural. The 2 ideas of this were either that Ida had made some kind of deal with him for power, resulting in her getting the Owl Beast's curse, or that Hootie had in fact tricked her, cursing her as a child. The main piece of evidence for the second part was that, come on, look at the cursor's silhouette. Some people proposed that in fact this wasn't a warped human, but instead a coiled up tube. The 2 wide eyes also perfectly matched Hootie. Clearly Hootie was the cursor, and the big bad twist villain, possibly even behind the Emperor's Coven. Possibly even being Bellows! Obviously this never happened, but some say this was originally the case, and they had to change it because it would have been too devastating of a twist.
That's right, Luce! It was me! The whole time! Hootie! Did you know that I was Philip Woodbane? That's right, Luce. I was wearing a suit the whole time. You never even noticed, just like those wild witches didn't notice. And now, with the Day of Unity, how can you— OW! My eyes!
Gus faked his growth spurt. On a pre-season 2 charity stream, Dinter was asked to tell 2 lies and 1 truth. She responded with 1, Hootie leaves the Owl House, 2, Gus growth spurt, and 3, Camila beat someone up. Now, halfway through season 2A, the first 2 scenarios had already happened, meaning one of them must be some kind of lie. So, the theory emerged that Gus was, in fact, faking his growth spurt in order to better fit in with his peers. There was actually in-show evidence of stuff like this happening. In an earlier episode, it was shown that illusionists can actually change their heights. The idea was that this would be revealed in a dramatic Gus episode, but that episode never ended up coming to pass.
Hey, Gus, you look kind of different.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I have looked like this the entire time.
And after Camila beat Jacob up in yesterday's lie, it became apparent that Dana was trolling, and all 3 were in fact true. Lumity gets together in Eclipse Lake. This year has a lot of Lumity, huh? When Season 2A episode names were revealed, fans immediately took intense interest. One particularly intrigued the fandom, this episode being Episode 9, Eclipse Lake. With all of Amity's moon motifs, this surely must be about her. Could this be it? The Lumity episode at long last? When the description was revealed, reading, when Luce gets sick with the common mold, it's up to Amity to find an important ingredient for the portal door. This belief only became stronger. Luce would be sick and stuff, and Amity would have to go save her. Possibly from some kind of life-threatening disease. On the way, Amity would accept how much she cares for Luce, and then they'd tell each other how they felt. This had to be it! It had to! Needless to say, when the episode right before it, Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's Door, were released, the reaction was hilarious.
No, she's fucking not. Oh!
Oh my god!
Wait, no, hold on. This is supposed to be a Hootie episode.
The fandom had all been preparing for episode 9 to finally confirm Lumity, so for the episode right before it, which fans had almost unanimously written off as a filler episode to do it, blew everyone's minds.
Tier 5.
King is a stone sleeper. In Season 2, Episode 3, we're introduced to the mystery of just what King is. This mystery continued until Episode 17, where he was finally revealed to be a Titan. However, there was nearly a year between this mystery's introduction and disclosure. At that time, there was a lot of speculation on King's species. A lot of people accurately guessed Titan, but another plausible theory was the idea of him being a stone sleeper. In Eclipse Lake, on the page that reveals the existence of Grimwalkers, an ingredient featured is stone sleeper lungs, featuring a stylized drawing of a very, very peculiar creature. Fans took notice of its familiar face and horns, and started speculating if this could, in fact, be King's species. Indeed, King had been sleeping inside a large stone tower as a baby, and Jean-Luc and the rest of those monsters were all made of stone. As well, with stone sleepers seemingly having magical lungs, King's sonic scream could be a connection. However, after the Season 2 hiatus ended, we were introduced to a flesh and blood stone sleeper in Elsewhere and Else-One, decidedly looking nothing like King. So, that theory died, and any doubts of King's titanhood were put to rest in Edge of the World. The Blights cursed Ida. This theory is all around a recurring diamond motif that people were convinced was connected. First things first, the diamond appears on the door that the person who cursed Ida opened, so people obviously thought that was significant. Then, looking at Blight Manor, we see that they, too, have a diamond on their mansion window. There's a number of other small pieces of diamond imagery as well. A common idea for why they could have cursed her is that it was assumed the Blights would be heavily tied to the Emperor's Coven. So perhaps they could have cursed her as a way of taking out a very powerful witch and an enemy of the Emperor's Coven. Of course, we didn't know then that Ida was cursed as a child.
Mom, did you curse Ida?
It was the Titan's will, dear.
The Titan's will? Did he directly tell you to do this?
Yes, he did, directly.
But why?
I needed to take down a powerful enemy of the Emperor's Coven.
But Mom, she was a child then.
Well, she was probably going to be really powerful.
She is a powerful witch.
Maybe she would have been even more powerful. Listen to your mother, Amity. I am doing the right thing.
I hate you so much.
And before I forget, the Titan also wanted me to announce the new Blight Industries Abomaton NFTs. Purchase it now. We have a Abomaton in a hat, a Abomaton in a smaller hat, a Abomaton with a bigger hat, a Abomaton with a mustache, yellow Abomaton, brown Abomaton, green Abomaton, blue Abomaton, straight pride Abomaton.
In the end, Lilith would be revealed to be a cursor, ultimately making way more sense and being a better story. Hey, is that a diamond? Grom returns. This one's a relatively simple one. Thank God. At the end of Enchanted Grom Fright, Luce and Amity defeat Grom with the power of being gay, and it's utterly disintegrated, save for a few small pieces which slither away into the forest. Some eagle-eyed fans took notice of this, and began speculating over the possibility of Grom returning in the future, as a potential major threat to the Isles. Unfortunately, this would never come to pass, though it is possible that it might have been a cut episode that had to be scrapped due to the Season 3 countdown. Lumity breaks up in Watching and Dreaming. This theory goes hand in hand with the idea of Luce being separated from the Boiling Isles. Forever. Assumingly due to no more portal magic being left, and there only being enough to have one more trip, Luce would, for some reason, decide to not stay in the Boiling Isles, and would have to say goodbye to all her friends on the bye, including the love of her life. Alternatively, it was theorized that Luce would die, by extension resulting in a breakup. Of course, she did die in Watching Dreaming, but she came back. The last idea was that, for some reason besides any of the two, they'd just stop loving each other and break up. This theory came almost entirely from people who have bad anxiety about this kind of stuff, worrying that their comfort ship would be ruined. And I get it, that's worrying. Of course, the other 10% of the people theorizing this weren't worried at all. They were hoping for it to happen. No! Stay back! Go away! Needless to say, this would have been a ridiculously upsetting ending, and one that would have likely completely ruined the show's reputation. The identity of Ida's friend. In Wing It Like Witches, when Ida's looking over her scrapbook, we see a blink and you'll miss it picture of young Ida, Lilith, and a third person, covered by another photo. Now, we know today that this person was Rain, but back then, fandom had no idea. There was tons of speculation over who this person could be, but an interesting theory popped out. Maybe this person cursed Ida. One of their only visible features was their large glasses. Possibly the large eyes we saw on the cursor? Another interesting theory suggested that somehow this person was Camila, comparing their skin tones and... well, that's about it. That was really the only piece of evidence. That and the idea of, wouldn't that be cool? King dies in King's Tide. Leading into King's Tide, people were already very nervous about King. We'd seen in Edge of the World that the Grand Huntsman required King to be killed in order for him to be released, and ever since, King had a link with the Collector, experiencing visions of him in the in-between world. When promo art began releasing, people got even more anxious. 3 pieces of art in particular got people riled up. One showing King's collar, torn off and discarded on the ground. One showing King's skull, completely removed from his head and also on the ground. And the other with a short animation of Titan blood falling, with characters with horrified expressions reflected in it. All of these signs together began pointing to the idea of King possibly being killed to release the Collector, and the fandom began fearing the worst. Thankfully, our Collector ended up being a lot less murderous than the Grand Huntsman idea had implied, and he was able to be released relatively peacefully. Tier 6. Belos is a house demon. This theory suggested that Belos, in fact, could be nothing more than trickery, and in fact the true Emperor was his castle itself. The core piece of evidence of this theory was the heart, that being the Titan's heart situated in the center of Belos' throne room. Obviously, we didn't know it was the Titan's heart at the time, but this led a small group of fans to wonder, could it be Belos's? The theory went that, since we never actually saw what's under Belos' cloak, what if he's actually connected to the ground in some way, being the castle itself? Another piece of evidence is when Belos seemingly collapsed and reappeared behind Luce. We know this now to of course be his evil goo power, but back then it was a suggestion that he was nothing more than a costume. Possibly Hootie's costume? Hootie ate Luce in episode 1. I feel like this one's self-explanatory. Basically, the theory is that when Luce entered the Owl House, Hootie went feral and completely ate her. Subsequently, the rest of the show is her hallucination, as she's slowly being digested. What the f-
Hootie, what the hell? She was gonna be a tax write-off.
Oh, well, you know me. Good old Hootie. I got the munchies.
Hootie, that was a little girl.
Hoot hoot.
Oh, hey, Amity? Will you be my goth girlfriend? My skin is melting.
Little Miss Perfect is 100% show accurate. Little Miss Perfect, the lesbian song from the album Read Out Loud, was adopted by the fandom as Amity's unofficial theme once her feelings for Luce became obvious. I mean, it just fits her character so well. Countless edits, animations, and associations with her with it made it seem more and more like the song was just made for her, unlike its sequel song Ordinary, which was in fact made for Luce's character. However, this started to lead to some fandom confusion. For one, the song says the girl singing was adopted, which Amity clearly wasn't, and also she's the head of the student council, something cheekily referenced in For the Future.
Yeah, Hexside doesn't even have a student council. I would know, I kept trying to organize one, but Bump thought I was too obsessed and—
All right, girl, take a breath.
These discrepancies led to some fans legitimately believing them to be true, leading to some confusion. Belos is a Lumity shipper. That's right, you heard this title right. Belos being the #1 Lumity fan. Alright, so obviously this theory is a joke one, primarily existing due to a Mooring Mark comic where Belos tried to get Luce to realize Amity likes her, only for Luce to be completely oblivious. Large parts of the fandom found this pretty funny, and it became a bit of an inside joke for a while, made even funnier after the reveal of just how bigoted Belos actually is. Luce time travels to prevent Belos from ever existing. Time pools were officially introduced to the series in Season 2, Episode 12, Elsewhere in Else 1. Since then, they haven't really been used, which some people have found odd. A theory floating around during Season 2B is that the way Belos was to be defeated was actually through these same time pools, with Luce traveling further back in time than before. While back in time, she'd changed the past so Belos would never gain power, perhaps even eliminating him entirely. Ignore that's not how time pools work, just roll with it.
Hootie hole theory. Oh my god, how could I end this video in any other way but the Hootie hole theory? Probably the most iconic Owl House fan theory. This theory was actually somewhat true. This theory suggested that Hootie actually spawned from the Titan, which, as we know from watching Dreaming, was actually the case with him being some kind of tapeworm. However, where this theory deviated from canon was the idea that Hootie was actually a portal. You see, the theory suggested that at some point Hootie would eat Luce or something, and then she'd find herself back in the human realm. Now, obviously this never happened, but even up to watching and Dreaming, this was a wildly popular theory.
Alright viewers, now we have reached the end of the iceberg. Well, nearly the end of the iceberg. You see, there's one theory left. One so much more horrific than anything else we've covered in this video, that I felt it was necessary to leave it at the very bottom of the list, contained far away from any light that could reach it. I understand if you want to click off. This one isn't for those who are faint of heart. Thanks for watching the video so much. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and share it with people, and considering subscribing. I spent a long time on this, and I would love for more people to be able to see it. Thank you so much for watching,
And until next time, this is Brosthorns, signing off.
with the introduction of the lovable shit. Would finally bring back the lovable psychopath Tumblr sexy man. And would finally bring back the lovable psychopath Tumblr sexy man. And would finally bring back the lovable. There's an ending where Dipper and Mabel. There's an ending where Dipper. There's a moment where Kikimora exclaims that the Owl House that would be revealed in the finale, as Rain was forced to betray their lover Rain. You got a girlfriend? I can't do impressions. But the idea was that the spy would infiltrate Hexside as a student. The idea that Hexside would. The idea that the spy would infiltrate Hex. The idea was that this would be a move. Fucking fire trucks. King died. Tried to get Luz to realize Lumity likes her. 3 pieces of art in particular got people riled up. I need water. Fuck.